featuring Will Gavin and Master Tess Fassian.
And a squad of big-name contributors.
The S Word
from talkSPORT.
Hello, good morning, 8 a.m. Eastern, 5 a.m. Pacific, and the S Word, sponsored by Calci, is here. I'm Will Gavin, Master Tess Fassian, alongside me, following a night where the European heavyweights flexed their muscles. Germany with a late victory over Côte d'Ivoire, Netherlands absolutely hammering Sweden in Houston, plus Japan looking really good, but an excellent draw for Curacao going up against Ecuador. I know Master is going to be questioning some South American qualification. I'm Will Gavin. Master Tess Fassian is live in Los Angeles, and we have got a huge lineup of guests for you today. Warren Barton, the former England defender, Fox colour commentator, who was at Germany Côte d'Ivoire last night, will give us all the latest from Toronto. We're joined by Andy Brassell, European football czar, who was at Netherlands, Sweden, to discuss that game. And absolute NFL and American sporting reporting loyalty, Peter King joins the show, one of the great American sports writers, to talk about the love affair with soccer going on in America right now. Plus, Ben Jacobs joins us from the West Coast with the very latest from the USMNT, from the transfer market, and also just from his travels. I've seen him throwing fish in Seattle markets and eating terrible pizza, doing all of the great and the good. So we'll have all of that coming up on today's show. The S Word, sponsored by Calci, and just get involved down in the chat. Master Tess Fassian is here. Get in, Master. How are we doing, brother? It is wonderful to see you, sir.
I'm doing great. Happy Father's Day, by the way. Will, happy Father's Day to you and everyone else out there who's listening and watching the show, and everyone else who's working behind the scenes. Happy Father's Day. Surprisingly, I just found out as well, the UK and the US both share the same Father's Day. Not that I know of. But I just was made aware that Father's Day is the same in the US as it is in the UK. So, fun fact.
And a huge thank you to all those guys joining us today who are celebrating Father's Day and are still going to be joining the show. Because the World Cup is on, my current setup at home is, because I'm staying up late to watch these games, I'm getting up in the middle of the night, I've been decamped to the spare room. I am not to go and wake my wife up in the middle of the night and go and kind of... So I'm sleeping in the spare room, and this morning I was still asleep. My wife got my two girls up, brought them into the room, and basically threw them on top of me to wake me up this morning, but with cards and presents and everything else. And it was a lovely sight. So, you know, I didn't mind the fact that I'd only gone to bed at 2 a.m. at halftime of Ecuador, Curacao. It was a wonderful thing. So thank you, brother. Appreciate it. Listen, big show coming up today. Firstly, just to apologise for again being off yesterday, because every time something good happens to Master Tess Fassian, I'm not here. Back-to-back USMNT victories, I didn't bother turning up. Arsenal in the Premier League, took a show off. I feel like you must feel like I don't enjoy your joy. Master,
no,
I love your joy. I was enjoying the show from home. I watched every moment of it. It was a great show. I'm sorry I wasn't here.
No problems on my end. Well, I just need to make sure we put in the schedule that you don't show up moving forward for the group of 32 after the USA plays, the round of 16, the quarterfinal. Let's just go ahead and schedule it now where you're off the day after those matches. Just saying. We're on a good roll right now. I don't want to ruin this jinx.
Until you and I play each other in the knockout stages. Could be as far as the final based on the current where it stands situation. So, you know, just a beautiful thing. We're going to talk through last night's games to kick things off. We've got that wonderful guest list coming up for you. And I was saying to myself, you know, do we start with that Germany come from behind win? Do we start with Netherlands, how impressive they looked against Sweden? But no, you want to start somewhere different, Master, I believe.
I'd like to start with Ecuador, Curacao, because honestly, in the first half, it was by far the worst half in this World Cup that we've seen, because we all expected Ecuador to just absolutely dominate Curacao based off the performance we saw against Germany. And it ended up being, Will, a historic night. And once again, a goalkeeper makes the headlines and is setting records and gaining more followers than we can count. And Eloy Room becomes the hero and the savior, and he accumulates 15 saves to help Curacao receive their first ever point in the World Cup, the smallest nation ever to make it to the World Cup, getting their first ever point. Big congrats to them, but also what a disgusting performance from Ecuador. It truly was embarrassing to see how much they struggle in open play to try and score goals. We all thought that this would be a dark horse candidate in this World Cup, and now they're holding on for dear life, just trying to make it into the knockout stage. And there's something to be said about South American football, and the amount of teams that do make it disproportionately, that do allow this kind of negative style of play that does benefit teams like Ecuador and others, where maybe goal scoring isn't the biggest priority. It's just more so how can you get some points? How can you play well defensively? And Ecuador clearly is an example of that. Some of these shots, Will, some of these shots are straight at the goalkeeper.
Like, and yeah, this isn't me doing a format moan again, but isn't it also part of it to do with that fact of the third place gets through, and the fact that it's now head-to-head record seems to be making a big difference to the approach to games at this stage. We're seeing a few dead rubbers. Like, we're still figuring this out. We're still seeing how it's going to look. You and I both want chaos from Game 3. That's what we want. I'm slightly worried we're not getting there because people are approaching Game 2 in a much more tentative fashion.
This is absolutely going to create more chaos, Will. I mean, Curacao getting a point. Like, if Ecuador would have gotten these 3 points, everything would have been solved in that group. Now, Germany obviously wins the group, but Ecuador now is fighting for dear life and trying to get into this knockout stage. So I still think the chaos is going to happen. I'm just more so disappointed in the performance from Ecuador because I really expected more from the side. And again, Eloy Room, an amazing performance that he had. 15 saves, fell one short of Tim Howard's record of 16 saves that he had against Belgium. And the timing of that was actually pretty poetic because at the time when this match was being played, there was a quote going viral from Tim Howard's podcast that basically he was asked about the chances of the United States making it and going far. And let me see if I can pull this up real quick.
While you're looking it up. Oh, you've got it. Fine, go.
Yeah. Basically, he said he was asked about the U.S. men's national team's chances on winning the World Cup, and he said the U.S. will need to play the greatest game they've ever played 3 times in a row. Sorry, 4 times in a row. It is literally impossible for the U.S. to win the World Cup. And, Will, it disappoints me because Tim Howard was one of my favorite players of all time. And over the last 2 years, he has become an insufferable hater on this generation of players that I pretty much view him as non-existent at this point. The way he has continuously bashed these players and not supported these players in any sort of shape, form, or fashion, just whether it's for some clicks, whether it's because he's jealous, whether he's envious because of the amount of attention they're getting, because of the amount of endorsement deals they're getting. Well, this is not only the first time he said something, very, distasteful about this men's national team. Literally last year, he was literally asked about these players last June, and he made it known, I am not a mentor to any of these players, and I am not any of their friends. What an absolute loser thing to say. I've never seen anyone that literally has destroyed and tarnished their reputation amongst U.S. soccer fans due to the simple fact of jealousy, envy, or whatever the case may be.
I think there's two very different things happening there, right? I agree with you. That quote from last year is a disgrace. And of course, you should be willing to support and get involved. And the USMNT want to get you in and have those conversations. Absolutely. I think when it comes to this idea that you've got to play 4 perfect games, that's obviously not true. I think what we've seen in this World Cup more than anything else, and we'll talk about this with the other games coming up, is this has been a World Cup of adjustments. This has been a World Cup of great coaching decisions. I haven't had my kind of say on the USMNT performance the other day, but I was stunned to see that Pochettino essentially decided to just bring Pepe in and play him on the left instead of moving the formation, and it worked. I thought he was brilliant in terms of his coaching. So I don't think that's true, but also I do think that there may be some American fans who are getting a little overexcited about these 2 performances.
Oh,
considering
stop it, Will.
The quality of
he's
the
a former player, Will. He's a former player. What if your former players came out and said they were not supporting this? You've got Zlatan Ibrahimovic. You've got all these players coming out right now publicly saying, hey, they've got a chance to win. Okay, if you want to knock or bash the team, that's one thing, okay? But listen, to do it publicly in this kind of way, consistently for these players, get behind them. There's no reason right now to be negative. Last year, completely understand. They just put up 2 impressive performances. And if you were insecure for the fact that because this team is being successful, that tarnishes your reputation, that tarnishes your ability to be your profile, your prominence in the U.S. soccer space, then that's on you. That has nothing to do with these players. Back these players. It's the home nation. Everyone's getting behind them, but for some reason Tim Howard isn't.
But there is a difference.
Listen, Will, listen. When that was happening, I promise you, when Leroy Room was getting save after save after save, and they flashed the fact that he was inching closer to Tim Howard's record, I was rooting for him to break that record. I did not give 2 craps about Tim Howard's record. I hope he broke that record, and I hope he shattered that record to make Tim Howard even more irrelevant, because the only time he's ever making headlines is when he's bashing these players, and I'm sorry, I just cannot get behind that, man. And again, this is coming from someone that loved Tim Howard, absolutely loved Tim Howard, but now he's non-existent to me. He truly is. And if anyone from England was doing the same thing when they were the host if they were the host nation and England put up 2 of these impressive performances as well, Will, you would feel some type of way as well.
But it's, while I'm agreeing with you, it's obviously not impossible for the US to win. I do also think there has been an element of some of the coverage has been a little bit on the delusional side about that they've suddenly gone from, it would be great to make the quarterfinals.
It's the host nation.
It would push things forward for the nation. It would be great for American soccer. So like now I feel like if you don't at least make the semi-final, people are going to be disappointed. And there are people who genuinely are like, well, we're going to get to the final at least. And I just think that there has to be a little bit of realism. I'm not saying Tim Howard has gone. He's gone too far the other way.
Stop it.
Way too far the other way. But like you're citing Zlatan, who was on live TV.
I'm going to cite Mauricio Pochettino.
You have to give a one-word answer, and that one-word answer is yes or no. Can the USA win the World Cup? And he said, yes. That's not.
He could have said no.
That's not.
He could have said no.
It's not really.
He could have said no.
That they're definitely.
Mauricio Pochettino has literally been telling these players to dream big. He's been telling the fans to dream big. He's been telling the players to dream big. He's been telling this nation to dream big. And all of a sudden, Tim Howard, a legendary U.S. men's national team, is the one who all of a sudden wants to be this realist so he can impress who? Who? For what? It makes no sense, Will. If you have nothing to say, don't say it at all. If you want to be like, hey, they're playing well, it's still going to be a very difficult road, completely understanding. But for you to say absolutely no chance and to continue to be absolutely negative to these players when they have performed 2 incredible matches and brought so much joy in growing the sport on the backs of what his generation did. I'm sorry, Will. I can't get behind that. I just cannot get behind it.
Is it un-American? Is that the problem? Is it just un-American of him?
It's not un-American. When you're coming out and saying you're not a mentor, you're not a friend to any of these players, who would say that? When we are trying to grow this sport, when everyone is trying to put in and chipping in every single aspect that they can, and all of a sudden Tim Howard thinks he's too good to do that? He's too good to help out and mentor some of these players who could absolutely use his experience, his understanding, how to navigate through European football and also how to navigate the U.S. men's national team. All of a sudden now, because you get a podcast, you want to act like you're this big, bad, tough, hot opinion sports takes guy when no one is really caring about what he has to say except when he's bashing these players. And I'm sorry, I cannot get behind that. I can't.
Is there a number for Tim Howard? We need to get him on the show because this needs to be.
I'm sick of this, man.
Would you have him on the show? You saying he's basically dead to you, but would you have him on the show to have this conversation?
Oh, absolutely.
Tim, this is the shout out to you. Get on the show. Tell Master why you're being quite so negative. Why you are being, I think, like I say, un-American, because the American way approach to this is I believe that we will win, and he is very much I believe we will lose at every stage.
Get behind us.
Of the
get
way.
behind us. If that's our identity, get behind the identity. Okay? I'm sorry we're not all pessimistic like English fans are, even though you guys make a song called It's Coming Home. That's not where we're at right now. Okay? Get behind this team, back this team, especially when you're a U.S. men's national team legend. That's it. Period.
Just on the original topic of the Ecuador-Curacao situation, I think what has to be cited when, I know I'm bringing this full circle and turning into something totally different, but just to come back on that, you previously complained about 16 teams coming out of Europe was too many. You're now saying there have to be question marks over the South American qualification. I mean, Ecuador finished second in that group stage, and I think there is a general question mark. I know a lot of people have cited, the USA win over Paraguay was so good because they beat Argentina, because they beat Brazil in qualification. You've got to note that the Brazilian qualification was an absolute kind of train wreck, and they still managed to finish fifth and only a couple of points behind the team in second. But how would you?
6 of the 10 teams in South America made it.
How would you redistribute?
That is the most disproportionate one. I mean, 6 of the 10 South American teams made it. When you're talking about disproportionate, based off the confederations, like again, and the 17 makes it to the playoff. Like I think that's more so out of all the confederations, you're all but assured. As long as defensively you play well and you're able to grab
as long as
points.
you don't do a Chile and just absolutely disappear off the face of the planet for 3 years.
Exactly. You're all but assured a very high chance of making it to this World Cup out of South America. So that was my thing. I think of what Ecuador's gone, I believe, 12 hours without scoring an open play goal. And you're doing this against a Curacao side that, again, they're not known for the sport, Will. They're known for baseball. And because of the diaspora through the Netherlands, and the Dutch colonialism, 10 of the 11 starters were born in the Netherlands. And the simple fact that they were able to get some of these guys to participate with this team and make it through CONCACAF World Cup qualifiers, like Ecuador should be performing better on the stage. They should. And it's an absolute embarrassment for the fact that they couldn't find the back of the net. Again, some of these saves were absolutely tremendous. But other times, just the level of quality, the final finishing product from Ecuador was downright embarrassing.
I think the thing is they had a really good first half against Ivory Coast in that first game, played really well. And Ivory Coast struggled to break them down. And I know that you're talking about the defensive football and the nature of that's what it is in South America, etc. But I do think that there is a potentially a format issue here because you're not incentivized to in that second half go, we've got to go great guns, we've got to get the win here. I think that is potentially a concern around this. I do want to talk.
Why do you think there was an incentive to win this game? I mean, it's Curacao getting 3 points here. I mean, depending on what side of the bracket you're on. I mean, we've been sending obviously live updates to the bracket and everyone wanting to avoid the bottom half of this bracket. I don't understand why you think that getting points isn't important here, because the pathway that you have, it's all in your control. The more points you're able to secure, the better your pathway can potentially be. So to think that they were not in the a motivated state to get 3 points against Curacao, I completely disagree with that notion.
I'm not saying they weren't in a motivated state to get 3 points. I'm saying in the second half, when things are tied, they are not throwing everything at the wall to see what sticks. That's potentially the concern with again, I've only seen the highlights from the second half. I haven't seen the full game from the second half from last night because, 3 a.m, etc. But I did get up and watch Japan this morning. That's what I did do. And I did get up and watch Japan look absolutely sensational in their 4-0 win. Admittedly over a Tunisia side who have not turned up to this World Cup in any way, shape or form. But really, I thought that they were absolutely fantastic. The way they were inspiring them to eliminate Tunisia is just a brilliant performance from Japan. Elsewhere, I'll just mention the Germany and the Netherlands games as well, because big wins for those European giants. We'll be talking a little bit more about those coming up shortly, because we're going to have Andy Brassell join the show coming up momentarily, and we're also going to have Warren Barton joining us shortly. What did you make of the Japan performance this morning?
I thought it was incredibly impressive, very clinical. I mean, obviously, push aside what we think about Tunisia, which is one of the worst teams in this World Cup. I thought Japan was very methodical, even without Kubo, I believe, who didn't play. Ito came in, stepped up, performed well. Kamada scored as well once again. Maeda scored once again. This is the dark horse team. And I was a bit concerned going into this tournament after Mitoma unfortunately pulled his hamstring, and wasn't sure about my thoughts about Japan, just because Mitoma is such a dynamic player, especially when he's on Japan's national team. But I would not want to face this team. I would not want to face Japan. And the way this bracket currently looks right now, Will, Japan, I believe, in the group of 32 would face Brazil. And what a matchup that would be.
Right now, I mean, admittedly, Carlo Ancelotti made some big changes in that second game, and no, it was against Haiti. But again, a World Cup that so far has been about those managerial adjustments, which we will get into with these other two games. But I just thought, watching them this morning, they look so fluid. They just look like a team who can beat you in so many different ways. They set up in that kind of, when they're going forward and they move into that kind of 3-2-5 shape where they're just absolutely swarming towards you. And I honestly think, okay, it's against Tunisia's side that we don't rate very highly, but I look at the top contenders in this tournament, and there aren't a lot of them that defensively you're turning around and saying they look absolutely rock solid. Actually, Côte d'Ivoire looked more rock solid than I'd say any of the European nations have so far yesterday. 100%. And then, had a tough way for that game to end, and Nagelsmann made some excellent changes. But I would fancy Japan to really, really cause some of the so-called big guns some big problems going forward in the tournament. And what I loved about it as well is, and this isn't fair to make a comparison, but we've talked a little bit about how both them and Korea as the kind of Asian representative nations, both being these very kind of these teams which are very technical, these teams which are very proficient, these teams who can attack you in so many different ways. And we saw such a different approach to the second game from these two teams, right? Korea turn up in Mexico. They know a draw will be enough for them to get through. They got that cauldron environment. Maybe that pressure got to them. They didn't create all the chances like they did in the opening game. They didn't look anywhere near as strong. And Japan just came and absolutely put pedal to the metal and absolutely took it to Tunisia. And I love to watch it. So I thought that was a sensational performance watching it back this morning. We are going to talk a bit about the Jeremy Doku situation coming up a little later. It is Father's Day after all, and these bizarre comments coming out of the French media. And we've got some great guests coming up over the course of the next 2 hours, kicking off with yesterday in Toronto for Germany, Côte d'Ivoire. That'll be our big focus. Up next is Warren Barton, the former England defender and Fox Sports colour commentator, joins us here on the S Word.
Around here, we only use the F word.
talkSPORT presents
The S Word. cuss words here. Just 2 hours of full-on football dialogue.
Every day.
talkSPORT presents
The S Word.
You're back with the S Word from talkSPORT, sponsored by Kalshi. Will Gavin here in London, Master Tesfatsion out on the West Coast. Loads of you getting involved in the chat. Ian saying Germany looking very hard to beat, and also believing only a few teams can actually win this tournament. France, Germany, Spain, Argentina or Brazil are his shouts for it. Nazif just says, I can't wait for the USA to lose. Insufferable. Not my comments, just letting you know. Fender saying Germany won't win it. Spain and Portugal, he believes, will turn it on. Interesting shout here from Let Me Be Frank With You on the actual S Word powered by talkSPORT stream. He says, so 5-1 against Sweden was not rock solid. Well, I might have watched a different game then. Did you watch the game? Is my question to you. Because what was amazing about that game of football is, yes, the Netherlands come and win 5-1. And if you look at that just headline, that's a fantastic performance. Brian Brobby turns up, has a great game, looks a brilliant, old-fashioned number 9, but actually really technical, really great first touch. Lots to love about that performance. I'm going to do something which I know Master hates, which I'm going to talk a little bit about XG, just a little bit. But just from that game in general, I'm not a person who relies on XG, but I also think the hate against it has gone way too far. It's a good stat that's illustrative over the way a game has gone. Sweden had more shots on target, basically equal possession. It was 51-49, more corners, and had a higher XG than the Netherlands in this game. If you watched the game, Sweden had chances. When they were 2-1 down, they should have gone and equalised. They could have even gone and taken a lead. Victor Gyökeres was wasteful. Alexander Isak was wasteful. They had real chances. They had chances from set pieces, from corners.
Credit to Verbruggen as well. Verbruggen made some good saves as well. Defensively, the Netherlands was much better in this performance.
And 100%. And they were much better defensively than they were in the opening game. And Verbruggen I was going to come on to, had a fantastic performance. But this wasn't 5-1, what a drumming. This wasn't Germany, Curacao, we've conceded an equaliser, now we're going to put our foot on the gas and absolutely dominate a minnow. Sweden were in this game. Sweden played really well for large stretches. They just had some bad lapses at the back and some really great play from that Netherlands front.
Yeah, they couldn't deal with Brobby's physicality, and it was a great decision to put him in the starting lineup. I know that was something that we had discussed on the show, whether he would start, whether Malin would start, with the fitness issues that Memphis Depay has right now. And I think it's very clear Brobby needs to continue starting. But Sweden didn't have an answer for Brobby's physicality. Cody Gakpo looked tremendous. He was very active and lively, and it was a much more fluid Netherlands attack against Sweden. And we'll see where they can go. That's another team that people think, could make a deep run in this tournament. And that performance against Sweden will probably get a lot more people back on the orange train after their performance against Japan.
Interesting, because they talked about Somerville in the build-up, and there was a lot of talk about whether he was fully healthy, did he have a knock from the first game or in training. Like, they kind of tried to sell us a little bit on that's why they made the decisions that they made, but actually moving man there out wide and having Robbie through the middle worked brilliantly, and there's some suggestion that maybe that was a tactical decision, not just a guy we're talking about maybe moving for £80 million to Manchester United this summer from West Ham, or a combined 130 for him and Matheus Fernandes. Like, he essentially got dropped from what I can see, and he comes off the bench and has an impact off the bench, and maybe that's the player.
He was great off the bench.
Maybe that's the player he's now going to be for them after drifting in and out of that opening game. But yeah, I have to, the shout out for Robbie, I mentioned his first touch. The opening goal is obviously a great poacher's number 9 goal. You're making the right run at the right moment, getting on the end of the ball, everything that needs to be. But the touch and the pass that he plays to start the move off further down the pitch, it's kind of like what we were talking about with Kane the other day, when a number 9 can drop deep, pull some strings, and then also be the guy who's making that run into the box. I thought he was fantastic, and I was slow to warm to him at Sunderland this season. Like,
Why is that?
It's not that he was... I don't know, maybe I'm just rallying against the idea of the old-fashioned... There's this kind of English thing of being like, loving an old-fashioned number 9, loving a tough tackling but not very technical centre midfielder. Like, my concern with the Germany performance yesterday, and I think my concern with Germany overall going forwards, is that they don't have great all-round players, great can-do-it-all players. And what I didn't realise about Robbie, that I maybe underrated watching him in the early part of the season for Sunderland, is he is a guy that can do it all. And I maybe didn't give him props for that. I maybe saw him as a bit of a lump, a bit of a kind of great in the Championship, not necessarily a Premier League kind of striker. And he's proven me entirely wrong. Been fantastic, and he did it again last night. I thought just excellent. It's a really, really great performance.
Yeah, his finishing product was tremendous, and probably could have had a hat trick very easily.
Yeah.
In that first half, truth be told. I think with his addition, with that tactical change, and the physicality that we saw from the back line, and the saves that Verbruggen made as well, this is probably the Netherlands team that a lot of people expected or anticipated. But the other side of this too is that, considering how Japan continuously responded to the Netherlands, and when they took the lead 1-0, Japan responded 1-1, same 2-1 going 2-2. These two teams, I think, have been pretty impressive from this group, and we're starting to piece together conceptually in terms of how far can Japan go, how far can the Netherlands go, and I feel very positive about both of them at this point. I really do.
Talking about the Germany game, and listen, I believe this when I say this World Cup, I think, is a World Cup of great coaching decisions so far. Talked about Pochettino, talked about Tuchel. I think that the second half adjustments, when France moved Michael Olise from the right wing to inside in that second half against Senegal, and absolutely opens the game up. Like, that has been for me the real telling thing about this World Cup. And I don't know if we're now living in a world where maybe people just have more access to tactical information. We joke about XG, but like, I think people are becoming nerdier about soccer/football, maybe. Like, there's lots of podcasts out there, lots of YouTube breakdowns, lots of really like helping you understand the tactical side of the game more. I really thought Germany, the decisions of Julian Nagelsmann in the second half, bringing Undav on was the obvious change. He has now 5 goal involvements in 56 minutes in this tournament. Like, question marks over whether he should be starting the next game, and the rest of the tournament I think are going to happen, playing in that kind of between the lines role that he did. Ivory Coast, playing that with that mid-block, so organised, so tough to break down. The width wasn't working, like nothing Germany was doing in that first half. It was completely anemic. And he just came in and he existed in those spaces. But it was actually the decision, I saw our friend Seb Stafford-Law talking about this morning, bringing Amiri on for Musiala, which is one of those decisions which... You bring on a Mainz midfielder for one of Bayern Munich's very best. It has to be the right decision, because otherwise the German press are going to get on you. The German fans are going to get on you. He comes off the bench. He plays sensationally. He sets up the first goal. And I just thought Nagelsmann, as much as I didn't think they were set up right at the start of the game, as much as I think it was quite a chastening overall performance for them, he made the right changes in the second half. You can't win a game in the first 2 quarters. You can win a game in the fourth quarter, master. And that's exactly what they did. And that's why there has to still be some concern over Germany in this tournament, even if, they're not looking at their very world-beating best.
I felt like I had probably found a bit more answers in their comeback against Ivory Coast. As you mentioned, those substitutions, they were a lot more direct as a result of those substitutions. And the biggest question was, as we had Seb on the show before the World Cup started, was where are these goals going to come from? That was the biggest question mark with Germany. And with Kai Havertz being up top, Leonard Carl was supposed to be a difference maker as well. And unfortunately, he suffered an injury right before the tournament started. And so they've gone with Leroy Sané in his position, and he just hasn't been up to it. And Undav, at this point, he finished second in the Bundesliga last year in goals behind Harry Kane. He's come on now in both of these matches. Again, I know the first one was Curacao, but coming in this match, being the absolute difference maker, scoring both of those goals, being very direct, being very clinical, which I think Germany desperately needed.
Yeah, just a bit.
in that match. And really changed the entire complexity of the game. Even if they would have gotten a draw from that, I think it would have been impressive considering how great Ivory Coast was defensively. But for him to come through with the game winner as well and scoring a brace off the bench, I think moving forward, Undav has to start over Leroy Sané. I think it's a no-brainer at this point. And moving forward, Undav has to be the starter in that midfield alongside Florian Wirtz and Musiala.
I think the concern for me, and the reason I say I still think it's a chastening game overall, is you said about Sané coming out of the game, right? Their other options are, they've really only got levelling now, is the other really only like traditional wide player after Lenny Carl missed out on the tournament. Wirtz playing out wide didn't really work for me yesterday. I thought they really lacked a physically dominant presence in the middle of the field as well. Like, they just don't look like a well-rounded team. They don't look like a team... They look at a team full of technical players, but they don't have that kind of explosiveness. They don't have that physicality. And look, you're kind of relying on Wirtz and Musiala to do incredible things, which we both know they're capable of, but have both come off one of their weaker seasons of their careers. Wirtz, obviously, the injuries, and then took a long time to get into that Liverpool flow of things. And Musiala, as much as Bayern Munich won the league and everything this season, he wasn't their greatest performer in the middle. And so, I don't know.
Well, he also came off a huge injury as well, Musiala.
Yeah, absolutely. So and very up and down on this German team. I'm like, they have a performance like the second half yesterday, and I'm like, oh, maybe we should. But I just don't know if I'm giving them too much respect based on what they are historically, rather than actually looking at what they are on paper and saying, this isn't a top-tier team.
I disagree. I thought that performance, again, Ivory Coast is a really, really good team.
Yeah.
I thought that was the best performance I've seen, particularly in the second half. Like, I think that was probably how do I want to phrase this? That was probably the best win I've seen from the European side.
Yeah, was it better than England over Croatia in the second half? That's the question.
Yes.
Was it better than England against Croatia in the second half? It was not.
I think Ivory Coast is better than Croatia. I really do. I think they're younger. They're more dynamic. They're more physical. They have great depth. I thought that was the best win from a European side I've seen so far in the group stage, and that gives me a bit more optimism into Germany, knowing that in spite of facing the physicality, in spite of facing the adversity, they could still find ways to not only just score goals, but also to win the game. And, on the flip side of that as well, Ivory Coast should have won this game. And I'm still frustrated and maddened by Adingra's miss and his decision that he had. 1-1 there, came in as a substitution coming off the left wing. Adingra's an interesting one, Will, because a couple years ago when AFCON was in the Ivory Coast and they were the home side, obviously they infamously sacked their manager after the first match and went on to win AFCON in their home country, and Adingra was a country legend as a result of that performance that he had throughout the tournament. And in his past AFCON, he wasn't on the roster due to lack of minutes and other options that they have from an attacking standpoint. He was able to make it for this World Cup, made the roster, and again, the decision making made to have him in the match. He could do some different things. He provides quality for the side, but to not one-time that shot. And to take a touch, and a poor touch as he did, when you have pretty much half the net wide open for you, to put Ivory Coast back ahead 2-1. I think that is a killer. That is a backbreaker for Ivory Coast. And that's one he's going to think about for a very, very long time. And it could impact his confidence. It'll be interesting to see how they respond to that, because you have Bazoum Atore, who started in the first match, didn't come on in this match, who I'm a huge fan of. He's 20 years old, out of plays for Hoffenheim, gives him another option on the left side. I thought at some point he probably should have came in the match, but when Nicola Pepe was, subbing in for Jan Diamande and providing that spark and that speed and really pressing Germany when it was 1-1, and you expect someone who's come through for this nation in big situations, in big tournaments, to one-time that and find the back of the net, or at least get it on target. To not have a shot at all was absolutely disgusting. And that is something that I just will not forget about this match. Ivory Coast had this match. They had the 3 points. And to walk away with nothing from this performance is a crushing blow to their chances in terms of how the bracket plays out and where they'll be in the knockout stage.
I'd like to have seen more endeavour at 1-0. That's the only thing I would say, because when Germany equalised, they opened things up and it became this very transitional football game. It became this very end-to-end, very exciting. I think, like, while I don't necessarily agree it's the best performance, I think the reason I see what you're saying about the most impressive performance is this was my favourite half of football from the World Cup, full stop. Like, most enjoyable, end-to-end, like, riveting, back and forth, everything that both managers were doing, the decisions, the changes that were being made. Yan Diomande was excellent for huge stretches of this game. Like, he looks like the one guy that is going to make those difference-making runs. Gets down to the byline, obviously, to set up the goal, matched up on Joshua Kimmich perfectly. He's obviously going to draw a huge amount of attention with €100 million plus bids going in for him right now and everything else that's going on. But it was the way that they opened up and attacked Germany. Like, they still had real opportunities at 1-0. You mentioned obviously the key one, but there were 2 or 3 others where they could have gone and won this game. And I don't know, maybe it's years of hurt from watching too much Gareth Southgate take a 1-0 lead and don't take another shot on target for the rest of the game kind of performances. But just maybe a little more endeavour for the rest of that first half is the only thing I'd say. But overall, I've been really impressed with the Ivory Coast.
But they're strong enough defensively to really hold it down and see those kind of games through. I mean,
but they didn't.
Germany
That's
really,
the problem. They didn't.
They have the capabilities to do so. Is my point. And unfortunately, they weren't able to do so. And yeah, they're going to be kicking themselves as a result of it. But yeah, I still think this Ivory Coast side, hopefully they'll figure it out, is a team that can beat you in many ways. They have enough dynamic wings. And defensively, they're just rock solid. So I had them going far in this tournament. But right now, in terms of the way the bracket will play out as a result of not getting anything from this Germany match, it's going to be a tough situation for them. They're probably going to get a very, very difficult draw in the group of 32, and we'll see if they'll be able to pull up any upsets as a result of that. But, yeah, disappointing outcome for Ivory Coast, but a great performance and a great result for Germany as well. They've won the group now as a result of that as well.
That's the old head-to-head record thing coming in there. That's, yeah.
Don't you love that? I really do. I like the head-to-head. I'm not going to lie to you. I like the head-to-head.
My concern is, truly, this isn't, you're going to say Europeans whinging again. My concern is just some of the match day threes aren't going to have the same level of, because you're going to have some teams that are going to be in dead rubber situations. The USA already in a dead rubber situation, for example. We've already started looking at here at talkSPORT. So we have talkSPORT and talkSPORT 2. We're broadcasting all 104 games of this tournament, and we're already now looking at, right, do we need to swap the obvious game that we put on talkSPORT for talkSPORT 2 because the other one's going to have a lot more jeopardy in it, like now, and we're not even close to the end of match day 2 yet. So that's my only thing, but I think that happens in tournaments anyway, regardless of whether it's goal difference or head-to-head, and I'm realistic. I know that teams aren't going to overcome a -4 goal difference to go and finish third place and overtake someone, but I'd like there to be that little extra bit of jeopardy in the last stages, but I want
there is, though.
See.
The third place. That's what I'm saying. The third place.
The third place jeopardy. The third place jeopardy. The problem with it is that it's third place versus third place jeopardy. So it's never the two teams playing at the same time. You're not like. You've not got that classic thing of, right, we are 2-1 up, but actually the other team are drawing 1-1. So we now know they're level with us on points and they've got ahead of us in goal difference. So we've now got to press out there and score 2 more goals in order to... I think it's going to be a lot less of that because of the head-to-head thing. And it's going to be, okay, we've done what we've done. Now we have to wait 2 days to see what the Group G third place team does. And that's not the same kind of direct jeopardy to me. It may be later in the stages it becomes more, but I think through the Groups A through F, we're going to see a lot of, right, this is what that could mean, but we don't know for 3 days yet. And that's not as fun to me.
But second place as well, like the US group, Paraguay and Australia, they're facing off against each other. Winner of that one, whoever gets the best result out of that one is going to finish in second place. And again, that impacts, and if someone loses that match and is not able to get 3 points from that one, not only does it impact their ability to automatically qualify in the top 2 side, but now they're in that jeopardy situation for the third place. I think it just drags out the tension. Again, AFCON has done this as well. They did it in the last AFCON in terms of qualifiers. I truly think I think you're going to eat your words on this one. I really think it's going to be really good and
again, much like Noni Madueke, I'll eat my words if it means a more entertaining tournament. 100%. Right, coming up, we've got an absolute superstar joining us. One of the great American sports writers, Peter King, will join us up next here on the S Word.
From kickoff to the full-time whistle,
talkSPORT presents
the S Word.
football in North America. And I mean the proper kind, where you only use your feet.
The S Word
From talkSPORT.
You're back with the S Word from talkSPORT, sponsored by Calci. I'm Will Gavin, live here in London. Our daily World Cup roundup. Master Tesfatsion joining me out in Los Angeles. He's off to Guadalajara up next. We'll find out all about that in the second hour of the show. Lots of you getting involved in the chat on YouTube, where you can find us both on the talkSPORT channel and the talkSPORT S Word channel. Kazi says if it was lacrosse, the USA would probably win it. There you go, Master. There's one for you. And I've just got
lacrosse.
Just to give some love to Mika Raj. Mika Raj in the chat, and I don't know if this is his joke, I don't know if this is something he's stolen from elsewhere, but he's referred to Dennis Undav as the Undertaker, and I'm totally here for it. As an old school wrestling nerd. We were, if you were paying attention earlier, due to have Warren Barton on a short while ago. He's now going to be joining us at the start of the next hour. But right now, let's get to our next guest, because this is true sports writing royalty. I'm sure he won't feel in any way, shape or form sheepish about me saying that about him. Delighted to introduce to the show the brilliant Peter King. Peter, how are you, sir?
Will and Master, it's really good to be with you. I really appreciate the invitation. I'm just sitting here in Brooklyn, New York, in total anonymity, and Master reaches out and says, come on the show. And I says, yes, let's do the S Word. Let's go.
Love it. Absolutely love it. See, I was hoping you might be back up in Massachusetts, because you could have seen the Scotland fans over recent days absolutely taking over.
So fantastic. How great was that? Listen, I don't think anybody in America, we were so focused, and Master, I bet you would agree with this. We were so focused on all the FIFA crap, all of the stuff of, $100 train rides, 7 miles, $100. We're focused on that stuff, and we didn't get what would happen when half of Japan would come over and have the biggest stakes they ever had in their lives, and when the Scots would come over and totally take over a 6-state region in New England and donate $30,000 to the Children's Hospital of Providence. It has been an incredible breath of fresh air to see how excited the world is to come to our damaged country.
I couldn't agree anymore, Peter. Great to see you. Great to hear from you. And thanks for coming on the show. I'm curious from your vantage point in terms of your exposure to the sport. Like, what is kind of your historical journey in terms of soccer, and how has kind of your perspective changed from all of these, vantage points that you mentioned, and all of the the cultures connecting with one another, in Lawrence, Kansas, with Algerians and people from Kansas, and Dallas, in terms of Japanese and the Dutch, and Mexico with Koreans and Mexicans. Take us through your journey in terms of your soccer journey, and how maybe that has changed or shifted because of this World Cup.
Well, I've always loved this game. In high school, I played soccer and not high school football, and I was the co-captain of my team my senior year, my last year in high school, 1974. So I have always had a soft spot. I saw Pele play in Hartford, Connecticut, the New York Cosmos against the Hartford Bicentennials when I was a kid. So, I mean, there's a lot about this game that I really, really like. I covered the 2010 World Cup in South Africa for Sports Illustrated, got to know Tim Howard, got to know the coach, Bradley. I really, really love the game. You guys will get a kick out of this. All right. After the first game in South Africa, remember in Rustenburg when England played the U.S., and England let in a real soft goal, and the game ended 1-1. Okay, so that was like a triumph for the U.S., and it was a fail for England. And I remember after the game trying to get Wayne Rooney to answer a question in the mix zone. And I said to him, hey, Wayne, Peter King with Sports Illustrated, hey. And he just looked right through me like I wasn't there. And I said, it must be hard to really cover and get to know these guys because they didn't seem very easy to get to know when I was at that World Cup in South Africa.
This is, to be clear, coming from a guy who, Peter and I once spent a little time in a vestibule at the Bayern Munich training ground, chatting back and forth.
Oh, wow, that's right, Will.
And I was stood there waiting to interview Cade Otten, who at the time was the rookie tight end of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And Peter was there, chatting away, and then Tom Brady comes out, shakes his hand personally, and they go off for a quiet chat in another room. And I'm like, that to give you just some context of the difference between covering the NFL versus covering football, because you wouldn't get that with Harry Kane or Wayne Rooney, that's for sure, Peter.
Yeah, you're right about that. And look, I'm grateful for sort of the ethos of football players in America, because they understand. I mean, Peyton Manning, Drew Brees, Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes most recently, they kind of understand that it's part of the game. And they don't view it as kind of, I've always viewed when I look, I have family in England. My sister-in-law is there. My late brother lived about an hour north of London and raised his family there. So I've been there a lot. And I always got the feeling that it must be so hard to really cover and get inside these teams. I mean, I've been inside NFL draft rooms, 9 of them. I've been, I spent a week with Carson Palmer, the quarterback, preparing for a game. I mean, it's just a little easier. But again, the game itself is so fantastic. I love it.
It is fantastic, and it's great to see when we have these crossover moments between the NFL and soccer. And there was no better story, I guess, to tell on Father's Day than watching Antonio Freeman's son score his first ever goal. I was in Seattle watching that, and just a crowd erupting and seeing the U.S. men's national team bench running to Alex Freeman after the VAR decision was confirmed. I'm curious, from your vantage point, I don't know if you got a chance to get to know Antonio Freeman back in the day and Alex Freeman. Do you have any stories of these two in the Freeman family?
I didn't know Antonio Freeman well at all. For a time I was fairly tight with Brett Favre, but I didn't get to know I've talked to Antonio Freeman, but I wouldn't say I know him at all. Here's the one thing that I think people need to realize. I've read all these things and heard all these things. Yeah, Antonio Freeman, the father, he played for the Packers, and he was a wide receiver back in the 90s with the Packers. Well, let's put Antonio Freeman's career a little bit in perspective. He, for a 3 or 4 year period, was a tremendous weapon for the Packers. He was their biggest weapon at wide receiver. I mean, think about this. In the Super Bowl, when the Packers beat New England in the mid-90s, Antonio Freeman broke the game open with an 81-yard touchdown catch in the second quarter, 81-yard touchdown catch with Brett Favre. The Packers went on to win the game. In the second Super Bowl, when they played Denver in San Diego, he opened the game in the first quarter with a touchdown pass from Favre. And then in the fourth quarter, with the Broncos ahead 24-17, he caught another touchdown pass from Favre. And the Packers ended up losing the game. But this was a tremendous football player in Antonio Freeman. He's not just, his father played for the Packers. No, his father was a huge factor for the Green Bay Packers.
And not just a huge factor for the Green Bay Packers, but they're at the old Kingdome, which now obviously is where Lumen Field is. He scored a touchdown on that very hallowed turf the season that they went and won the Super Bowl. So those moments that come around are absolutely beautiful. One thing I do know about Peter, he's saying he loves the game of soccer. Is it soccer or is it cricket for you? What do you love more, Peter? That's the question.
Well, I've actually been to Lord's, and before my brother died in 2014, and a couple of years before, we went to see a test match at Lord's and walked across Abbey Road, and just, I don't know, I really like cricket. It's such a strange but kind of infectious sport, but I much prefer soccer. I really do. Like, I was thinking of this the other day. I don't know if this hit you guys, but imagine seeing Lionel Messi, okay, play a game on the same field where Tom Brady had one of his greatest triumphs when he beat Patrick Mahomes 8 years ago in the AFC Championship in overtime. And then imagine how many great moments Patrick Mahomes has had in that stadium on that field. And Lionel Messi comes in and on that same field has maybe the best game of his World Cup life. Here's one of the, you guys figure it out. I don't know who's the greatest soccer player of all time, but he's certainly in the conversation. And imagine when he looks back at his career and says, yep, that medium-sized city in Missouri, I had this incredible game and there were 70,000 people going out of their minds. Those are the moments about the World Cup that I so appreciate about the World Cup being here.
That is just on that point, Master. I know you're going to jump in, but one of our guys, Romario, who's out there covering it, went to Ecuador, Curacao last night, and we were messaging during the game, and he could not believe Arrowhead. It was just like, and I think there is this thing of like English football stadiums, for the most part, barring some new ones, are very throwback, very old school. We love the history, but they are these kind of slightly run down, the English fans that have gone over, the English media that have gone over, covering some of these games in some of these NFL stadiums have just had their minds absolutely blown, and Arrowhead is right up there for them. It's wonderful to see.
Yeah.
Go on, Master. Sorry.
The one thing I would just say about the stadiums, I mean, that's kind of a tribute to the fact that the NFL teams kind of can hold their cities hostage and can make these incredible stadium deals, all except really kind of Los Angeles and probably Seattle. Listen, there's a guy named Paul Allen who tech nerds would know because he and Bill Gates, I guess, sort of founded Microsoft. And Paul Allen, without Paul Allen's influence in buying the Seattle Seahawks, first of all, that Lumen Field, that stadium would never have existed without Paul Allen. And number two, the World Cup would never have been in Seattle. It just wouldn't have gone there because the stadium would not have been fit to have the game there. But my daughter-in-law lives in Seattle, and I'm there a lot. And the fan base for soccer, I've done a march to the match with the Seattle Sounders, and it's insane. It's crazy for what is not really viewed worldwide as a kind of a major league. It really is a big soccer town.
I hope the U.S. men's national team plays every match there. I had so much fun at that match. But Peter, I'm curious to hear from your vantage point, as you talked about all your touch points that you've had in the sport. What do you think the World Cup will do moving forward in the United States in terms of the growth of the sport? And I'd be remiss not to ask you as well, someone you worked with at Sports Illustrated, Grant Wall, his absence obviously is very much missed. And everything that he did to help grow this sport here and seeing all the opportunities now that exist. I'm curious in terms of your relationship with Grant Wall. And, it's just I miss reading his content and reading his stories, particularly for this World Cup.
Missing Grant Wall here has been just, I mean, Grant Wall's absence has really been noticed because I go online, I read a lot about these games and everything. And I just remember in Qatar, before Grant tragically died at the World Cup in Qatar, I'd wake up in the morning and I'd go read what Grant wrote. It's just like in football. When I was a kid, I'd go read what Paul Zimmerman wrote. He was a famous football writer. So I think that basically kind of tells you how missed he is. And it's really, really sad that he wasn't able to cover this World Cup on his home turf. Now, as far as what this means to this country, I'm always really cautious about saying, well, this is a seminal moment in the history of soccer in the U.S. Quite honestly, Master, I knew very well that the fans were going to go bat crap over the World Cup here. And you know how I knew? Because on Sunday morning, when I walk my dog in my neighborhood in Brooklyn, it's a very diverse neighborhood. I live in the Fort Greene, Prospect Heights neighborhood. And there are all sorts of soccer bars. There's an Arsenal bar in Fort Greene that is just packed to the gills if I ever walk my dog by there, and Arsenal is, playing on TV. So I knew that people were going to be enthusiastic, much more so than they were when it was here in 1994 or whatever year that was. Much more, because we've gotten into a lot of the Sunday morning soccer, Saturday morning soccer on TV, whether it be on Peacock, on NBC, whatever it is. And people now are huge fans of the Premier League, just like they are in so many places all around the United States. So I knew it would be big, but I think the biggest marker is going to be how far does the U.S. team go? And I think if the U.S. team, craps out early, like in the first game of the knockout phase, I think it'll be influential having the World Cup here, but I'm not sure it will be nearly as big as if, let's just say, the U.S. gets to the quarters or the semis.
It'd be a wonderful thing to see. And just to give you your props as well, Peter, as someone who's covered the NFL over here since about 2012, 2013, many of my views on podcasts and everywhere else were very much stolen from the MQB every Monday morning. So you woke up and read Grant Wall. I woke up and read you on a Monday. So we had Olive Fashanu on the show earlier this week, the great left tackle of the New York Jets, big soccer guy, Nigerian heritage, big Man United fan. He wouldn't quite be fully drawn on it, but conversation about the grass fields that have been brought in for the World Cup, we did turn attention to that. MetLife kind of known as a place where ACLs go to die. Do you think there's going to be any pressure on the NFL from what we've seen this summer, from the players, from the Players Association to start to move back towards more of those grass fields?
There will be pressure, but the only way, Will, that the pressure will ever translate into all grass fields in the NFL is very, very simple. You've got to make it a part of the collective bargaining agreement. That's all there is to it. And if players don't stand up and say, we don't want to play on the fake grass anymore, we want real grass, well, you've got to legislate it, because owners left to their own devices are going to cite the statistics that say there's no overwhelming or very significant evidence that the injuries, especially to knees and ankles and feet, is any greater on AstroTurf than it is on natural grass. And that is in part because late in the year, December, January, when you have to, if you would play on natural grass, a lot of those fields are chewed up and in awful shape. So there's sometimes when it's actually going to be better for the body to play on artificial turf. But most of the time, I'll tell you, players in an avalanche would rather play on grass. And the collective bargaining agreement is coming up now, negotiations in about 3 years. These players, if you want it, you got to fight for it.
It's going to be an 18-game conversation, Master. I think there's going to be a lot of what do we get back from the NFL if that happens, and maybe that's going to be one of the things on the docket. Peter, we really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Peter. Thank you so much
for joining us.
Will, thanks a lot, Master. It was great being on with you guys. Enjoy the games.
Thank you so much. You enjoy watching soccer. Continue to take over your country at least for a few more weeks, and hopefully the USMNT can deliver that semi-final.
Come on, boys. Come on, boys.
The brilliant Peter King joining us on the S Word. Genuinely, really, really enjoyed that. What a wonderful, wonderful chat that was. In the next hour, Andy Brassell will join us to talk about what he saw from the Netherlands and Sweden in Houston yesterday. Ben Jacobs will join us from the West Coast to give us the latest from inside that USMNT camp. Plus, he's been getting up to all sorts of shenanigans, throwing fish around, eating deep dish pizza. So we'll get a bit of a view from him on that as well. All coming up in the second hour of the S Word, sponsored by Kalshi.
Big name reaction from both sides of the pond.
The S Word
from talkSPORT.
featuring Will Gavin and Master Tesfatian.
And a squad of big-name contributors.
The S Word
From talkSPORT.
Hello, welcome to the S Word from talkSPORT. I'm Will Gavin, Master Tesfatian out in LA as we had another huge night of World Cup action last night to reflect on Germany, late winners over the Côte d'Ivoire. Is that really them finally putting their stamp on the tournament? The Netherlands, what a performance in a 5-1 win over Sweden. But Sweden had their part to play as well. Andy Brassell will join us from Houston, where he was at the game last night. Plus Ben Jacobs will join us from out on the West Coast as we look at the latest from the USMNT and a bit of his travelogue, because he is out there having a heck of a lot of fun. This is the S Word, sponsored by Calci. Get involved in the chat on YouTube at talkSPORT S Word, and also on the talkSPORT channel. Loads of you getting up in that as well. We'll get involved. And coming up, we're going to look forward to the rest of this group stage and draft our favourite games, the games we'd most like to be at over the course of the next week or so here on the S Word. Master Peter King, tremendous. People have to go and watch that back in full. It'll be up on YouTube. It'll be in the podcast, available on Apple Podcasts and video, Spotify, Tubi, loads of other places. Brilliant stuff from him. What a joy to have him on.
Yeah, it was great having him on. I didn't realize he played soccer in high school, and just hearing those different nuggets about his journey, his soccer journey, I thought was incredibly fascinating. It's great to have him on, and great to see his perspective on these things.
Just one thing I wanted to talk about very quickly before we get on to our fun draft thing, because we were going to do this in the first hour, but never really got a chance to do it. It is Father's Day today, and there was a piece of news that came out overnight from the World Cup, a bit of sensationalism, a bit of nonsense coming out of France that has been highlighted and picked up across social media and been trending. And if you've not seen this is the news that Jeremy Doku could temporarily leave the Belgian World Cup camp, likely miss at least one game of the group stages, to be present at the birth of his son. It is his first child, first and foremost, to be clear. Well, a French journalist, France Perron, has not held back in her comments on French TV about this. Said, "Are you seriously telling me these players have sacrificed everything to come to the World Cup and they're leaving just to cut an umbilical cord?" She said, "You're lucky enough to play in a World Cup. It's an incredible privilege. Hundreds of footballers would have anything to be in your position, and that opportunity may never come again in your life. And you're going to throw it all away to attend your child's birth." He said, "It's a moment the father isn't really needed. It's a symbolic role. You hold her hand, you take a photo, then what?" And just, I'd like said, just carried on and
this
carried
was from
on
a woman?
and buried her. This was from a female journalist who is a mother as well, from what I've seen on social media. And listen, just from a personal perspective, seeing this story, I just wanted to kind of have a say on it, because obviously I'm not qualified to speak on this in the same way that a mother or somebody who has had to deal with that situation and knows the support of a partner can be for them. But what I can do is talk from my personal experiences. I have twin girls. They are 2 years old now, but their whole journey into this world was very difficult. I won't go into too much detail, but they were IVF children. We had some complications during the pregnancy, and they ended up being born at 29 weeks, 11 weeks early, and ended up spending 4 months in the neonatal ICU, getting strong enough to finally come home. They're healthy now, gorgeous little girls, the life and soul of any party they're at. They're great fun, love them to pieces, but they had a very difficult start to life. And I think back to the day that they were born, right? It was an emergency cesarean section, 11 weeks before they were due to come, after an extended stay in hospital. And I'm not saying every situation is like that. Thankfully, very few births are like that. Thankfully, a lot of people get to have a very normal situation when their first child comes into the world. But you're telling me that the support of a partner in that situation, that being there, that if my wife had to be put under general anaesthetic, to have the children born in that way, to then be taken away straight into the ICU, that actually having the other person there wasn't a positive for them, that I felt completely useless in the situation. But I know that the one thing I could do was make sure I was there to support her and there to support my children as they came into the world. And the idea that you're going to absolutely rain on somebody from high because they want to be there for their partner at the birth of their first child. Football is so much of all of our lives. People who are watching this show love football, they love soccer. If you are probably a soccer sicko if you are logged in and tuned into this show. the idea that there's not things bigger than football, that there's not things more important than, that the actual real takeaway from this World Cup so far has been the beautiful way it's brought the world together, that it's been the wonderful way that we've seen people of all different backgrounds and ethnicities come together. It's the story of what it is for people, not the story of necessarily what happens for 96, 97 minutes on the pitch every day. And if Jeremy Doku feels that the best thing for his relationship, for his partner, is to be there at the birth of his child, you say this is something that happens for many people only once in their life. So's that. And for a lot of people, it never happens. So just this idea that this journalist has spoken out against Jeremy Doku and taken shots at him, and this idea that he shouldn't be there for the birth of his child is just madness to me. Congratulations to Jeremy Doku. Congratulations on what should hopefully be a happy, healthy baby. And if you miss a game of the World Cup, I don't think anyone in your nation is going to blame you. Ignore this journalist. She's talking utter rubbish. That's all I wanted to get off my chest.
You got it off your chest.
I just couldn't believe it.
I couldn't believe it either. I didn't know it was a woman journalist that said all that. I thought it was a male journalist that felt some type of way about it. But I agree with you, man. Obviously, I don't have any kids, but a lot of my friends are having kids now, and you don't really hear about the complications of pregnancy and childbirth until your friends are going through these circumstances and situations. And I didn't know that obviously you went through that with your partner in terms of delivering the twins. But there's a lot of friends of mine, particularly in the last 2 years here in the States, that have had to go through unfortunate, serious situations like that as well. And yeah, why would you not want your partner to be around? There's nothing about it that's guaranteed. In fact, the probabilities of a healthy childbirth, it really is a miracle in itself.
We also live in a very different world. This idea that the role of the other person in that situation is merely a ceremonial role, etc. Like there was this very funny trend that was going on, and it happened to coincide when we had our children. So obviously I was on that side of TikTok and Instagram and everything else. But there was this very funny trend that was going on where people were saying, oh my God, your husband's so good with the kids. Oh my God, you can just leave him with them and go off and do your own thing. And he's great with them. And they're like, yeah, because I didn't marry an idiot. Like, because I didn't end up like... this whole thing of like, we live in a different world, and I'm not judging anyone who, you know, in the past when there were much more defined male, female, breadwinner, whatever roles, but it's madness to understand that this is it's one of the hardest things people will ever go through. It's also one of the most joyous things often people will ever go through. But the fact that you don't understand that it is a partnership, it is a relationship, it is the group collective thing, not just you leave the woman at home to have the child and then they raise them. It's 2026. It's not 1956. Come on.
Oftentimes though, that's kind of the perception with athletes though. So if anything, I commend Jeremy Doku even more for taking the stance and wanting to be an involved father from literally the start. I think, again, I'm not here to say it's a norm or not, but more often than not, we kind of have this perception that athletes are just going to be there real quick and prioritize other things, and these are sacrifices that come with being a professional athlete. But to sacrifice a potential World Cup match for your own child, again, may not be appreciated by other people in Belgium or this journalist in particular, but the child, and I'm sure the partner will appreciate it, and that's all that matters.
Let's praise Jeremy Doku for the fact that he is going to go home, and then at what should be one of the most joyous periods of his life, when he is enjoying these first early stages, he's probably going to go back to the World Cup and play in this team. Like, that's something that he should be lauded for doing that, not for making a sacrifice. That's the sacrifice. The sacrifice is not leaving your team. Anyway, let's do which games we want to go to for the rest of the World Cup, because we ended up going off on a bit of a tangent there. Have we got time to do it? Are we happy to do this? Yeah, I'm just getting a thumbs up from the other side and making sure. This is one of our excellent S-word drafts. You've not seen the other ones. They are up on there. And we've done all sorts of things. We've done the food of the World Cup. We maybe revisit that at some point? But we're going to pick our games that we want to see for the rest of the tournament. Master, you're out there. You're actually getting to experience and enjoy these games in person. So I will divert to you first and foremost. What is your number one pick? The game when you look over the next week and a half of these remaining group stage games that you're most desperate to get to?
Oh, honestly, Brazil, Scotland. That one, I want to see Scotland play. I really do. And having a chance to see the Brazilian fan base partner up with the Scottish Tartan Army, that atmosphere, that environment in Miami of all places, with everything on the line for both of these nations. That one has the potential to be one of the best atmospheres of this World Cup. I would love to be there for that.
That was very high on my list, just because of that clash of those fans coming together. Also, Hard Rock Stadium's a great stadium. Miami's a great city. Like, there's a lot to tick off on that. These were my kind of considerations on all of these, were where it was as well, when it was, what the heat was going to be like, obviously, for me as well. I will go second overall. I'm going to take the game that stood out before the tournament anyway, but now I think even more after their first two performances stands up. I'll take Norway, France. It's also at Gillette Stadium. Let's get into Boston. Let's be with those Norwegian fans, doing the row, experiencing what the Scots have experienced over recent weeks. Like, as much as I love how much Boston has adopted the Scots, I hope they have as much fun with the English ahead of this Ghana game this weekend. I don't think it's going to be quite the same, but as long as the English behave themselves, clean up after themselves, I think they'll still have a lot of fun. The Norwegian fans we've already seen have been there at Gillette and having a great time at Foxborough. So yeah, Norway, France, that's going to be my first pick off the board. Master, what's up next?
Oh, you know what? Let me make sure this one.
To be clear on this, just so while you're looking it up, the rules of this, by the way, is that time and distance has no meaning. So if I wanted to say I wanted to be at that game, but also I wanted to be at USA Turkey at SoFi, which kicks off like 5 hours later, and there's no way I could get across the country, that doesn't matter. We've got teleportation and stuff. That's fine.
I mean, you're pretty much describing my World Cup ventures right now. But you know what? I'll make it easy on myself. I'll stay in Miami. I'll do Portugal, Colombia. That was one of the big matchups leading into this group stage. I was fortunate enough to go to France, Senegal. I think I put Brazil, Scotland ahead of this match because of the Tartan Army and how much I fell in love with them. But this was probably my second favorite match of the group stage. Being able to see the Colombian fan base that exists in South Florida, alongside with the Portuguese coming in and Cristiano Ronaldo, he's got a lot of fans in South Florida. That is going to be a ridiculous environment. That is one to watch.
I'll tell you, I had Turkey USA quite high on my list as well, purely from like a perspective of I want to be and see the USMNT fans. I want to go and experience that. I love SoFi Stadium. But the fact that it's now a dead rubber, I think maybe has to knock it down my list. I have two other quite clear ones at the top end, and part of me is like I want to pick a game in Mexico because I really want to do that. But I think, do you know what? I'm going to go for it because I loved watching them in action last night. Sweden have been one of the most exciting teams of the tournament, for better or worse. Plus, it's at AT&T in Arlington, Texas. I'm going to take Japan-Sweden off the board up next.
Oh,
yeah, I think that's going to be a banger.
I like that one.
4 points and 3 points. Like, Japan have technically qualified now, but with the head-to-head against those two teams, one of them's probably going to come out in third. Who they're going to qualify against, I think that's going to be a great game.
I think you're right on that one. I think it's going to be a really, really good game. Now, it's slim pickings now. It really is.
Oh, I've got a couple more still up there for me. Although one of them is a little bit home bias, of course.
Of course it is. There's no way I'm claiming that one. So you can enjoy that.
Thanks.
One.
I'll hold off to that last then.
Yeah, I'm not picking that one. The tricky part is I've seen some of these teams already. So
yeah, I get that. You were in a very different situation to me when it comes to this list.
You know what? I would love to see, and this is a wild one.
Mm-hmm.
Cape Verde.
Hello.
Has been unbelievable. Give me Cape Verde, Saudi Arabia.
Rather than not even the Uruguay game. You're going to NRG. You're going to one of your least favorite stadiums.
Yeah, I'm going to Houston, one of my least favorite cities in the world, because I want to go to. I wish I could be there to see Cape Verde in Miami right now, but the Cape Verdeans have been so much fun. Based off what I've seen, and I would love to experience that. And just a culture clash between Cape Verdeans and Saudis. I just think that could create some really, really interesting and fun culture clashes that, again, quality of the match, who knows, but I'd have a lot of fun, and that's all that matters.
I will go to a game at the exact same time as you. While you're watching that game, I'll go to Uruguay against Spain because I get to go to Guadalajara. I get to experience that environment that you're going to get to go and experience in the coming days. The Mexican fans have looked amazing. Spain need to turn up over these next two games. They could be at a point where, against Uruguay, they need something to top the group. They need something to finish second. Like, they could be in a really difficult position. So Spain, Uruguay at the Estadio Akron is next up for me. One more each?
One more each. This one again, catching people off guard. I'm going to Vancouver.
Oh, I really wanted to do a Canadian one. Damn it.
Hey, Vancouver, the atmosphere from the last one, Canada Qatar, Tom Bogert was there, and I was able to catch up with him in Seattle for the U.S. Australia match. And he said that was one of the best atmospheres he's ever been into. So give me Switzerland, give me Canada. There's a lot on the line still for this group between these two nations. That atmosphere should be tremendous.
That was next off my board for me. Dang-nammit. I'm only allowed one more, aren't I? I was going to take that. I was Canada.
Take England.
My next thing was going to be like taking the home nations. That was going to be my kind of plan to try and catch the home nations in their home countries. Because like Czech Republic, Mexico would also be right up there for me. The Czech Republic have not been a joy to watch, but getting to go to Azteca, getting to watch Mexico in that environment, do you know what I'm going to do? I'm taking Czech Republic, Mexico as my next one. I would have taken Canada.
Stadium Azteca.
You got it ahead of me, but a chance to go to a Stadium Azteca, wonderful stuff. And
a lot of time in Mexico. Mas fiesta for you.
Listen, mas fiesta. And if we're not allowed to do one more, obviously, he said he wasn't going to pick it. So I would have picked Ghana against England because you need to see England in person. Again, it's at Gillette.
It's Panama, England.
Boston. No, I'd go Ghana, England. I'd go the next one up. Forget Panama, England. I'm going to go Ghana, England. If I go Panama, England, I've got to go to MetLife. Ghana, England, in Boston. This week, that would be my next one. I'd have taken that second or third.
We're not doing match day. I'm not going to pick a match day 3.
I know. We just said remaining games late. We just said remaining games. Games remaining. That was all it was.
What are you talking about?
We're
making up the rules.
Going to be. Guess what? The joy is it's our show. We get to make up the rules. Coming up
now.
Later in this hour, Ben Jacobs is going to be joining us. We'll do some transfer news with Sandro Tonali potentially going to Spurs or Man City. We'll do some USMNT and we'll do some fish throwing. Yep, that's right, fish throwing. But up next, we are joined by the great Andy Brassell. He was at Netherlands, Sweden last night. We'll get a view of the action from NRG.
From the touchline to the terraces,
talkSPORT presents
the S Word. Kickoff to the full-time whistle.
Don't say the S word. Say the F word.
Football. The S Word.
From talkSPORT.
Yeah, back on the S Word from talkSPORT with me, Will Gavin, Master Tesfazian, live out in Los Angeles. Final hour of the show, we still got Ben Jacobs to come, who will also be joining us from out there on the West Coast. I don't know why him and Master aren't just hanging out in the same room together. It's only like 6:30 in the morning. This feels like a perfect time to be hanging out with Ben Jacobs.
I've crossed paths with him in so many different cities, and somehow I've yet to see Ben Jacobs.
That's amazing.
Disappointing.
Well, we'll get Ben Jacobs on shortly. But first, before that, just a reminder, get involved in the chat on YouTube. We are there live now on both the talkSPORT channel and on the talkSPORT S Word channel. And we are available as a podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts as video, Tubi, TuneIn Radio. We're live on SiriusXM FC every day. We are everywhere. Absolutely everywhere. So we'd love to hear from you in all of those locations. Just getting into that chat a little bit, Patricia is backing the US to go to at least the quarterfinals, but also said play against a top 10 team, thinks you're out. So I feel like you're talking about both sides of your face a little bit there, Patricia. Let's ignore what Tim Howard's got to say and back the boys, as it were. Right, we're going to talk a little bit.
Oh, now you're on board. Finally, you're on board now. Come on.
Let's talk the action in Houston last night, where the Netherlands put 5 on Sweden, live on talkSPORT.
An all-European clash with one express intention: avoid Brazil towards the halfway line. Brobbey's done well on the half turn just to shepherd it back. Cody Gakpo making his way forward. Brobbey 1-0. Hasn't taken long. Lift off in Houston. Another great ball in. Oh, it's taken a little nick on its way through, but has deceived the goalkeeper and he's crept into the far post.
The Dutch have started this game immaculately, I've got to say, and it's that man Brobbey again.
This hydration break cannot come soon enough for Graham Potter. Great ball in. It's 3-0. Cody Gakpo coming into the far post, could not miss, but it's all about Denzel Dumfries. Finding Cody Gakpo, 4-0. Drilled low into the bottom left-hand corner.
If you want to see goals, this is the group to come and see them.
Anthony Elanga past Van Aken's challenge, and there's one back for Sweden. Somerville running at Lindelof, right-footed effort into the bottom left-hand corner. It's finished here in Houston. Netherlands 5, Sweden 1.
With a number of goals in that game, we've actually run out of time in this section, so we'll be back. I'm kidding. Delighted to welcome onto the show a man who was there in Houston last night. The brilliant Andy Brassell is with us now. Andy, thank you so much for joining us on the show. Good to see you, brother.
Hey, Will, Master, you good?
Yeah, very good, very good.
Great.
You got a bit of a banger last night. Let me ask you from the perspective in stadium, because we had a few people calling us out at the start of the show when I said that none of the European sides had done anything solid yet, saying, what about that Netherlands performance? But this felt like a game for me where 5-1 was maybe a little bit unflattering for the Swedes.
Yeah, it was big time. I spoke to a couple of them afterwards, and they were still trying to kind of figure it out exactly what happened. I mean, they had more shots, they had plenty of the play. They started both halves really, really badly, the Swedes. And it's funny because having watched quite a lot of Sweden under Graham Potter, I just think if you were going to tell me before the start of the game that one of these teams is going to dominate, have loads of the play, create chances and miss them, and the other one's going to pick them off, you'd think it would be the team with Gyökeres and Isak that would do the picking off, wouldn't you? But they didn't. It was completely the other way around. And to see this sort of efficiency from Sweden, I mean, I was speaking to Jim and Stuart and Adrian Durham before the game, and the general view was the Dutch really overrate themselves, and that Ronald Koeman had maybe made a bit of a mistake bringing in Brian Bobby and leaving out Crescencio Somerville. I mean, I think that was kind of forced on him, it turns out, because he said Somerville wasn't fit to play the whole game. And then he came on with like rocket in his boots in the second half and made a massive difference as well.
So here's the question now: do you start him now moving forward? He looked very physical against the Sweden center backs and looked clinical. Should have had a hat trick maybe in the first half. Is he the man up top for the Netherlands moving forward?
Well, it's a really good question, Master, because globally, I like Marlon in the centre forward position. You know, this is a guy who scored 14 goals in the second half of the season for Roma, playing at centre forward. And it kind of feels that against good defences, that little bit of extra craft with him and Somerville in the team would be great. But Brobbey gave Sweden something different to deal with. I think the idea, speaking to some of the Dutch, was that they wanted to be a bit more physical. It's funny, if you look at the very first play of the game, when they kick off, the Netherlands pass the ball back to Barton Verbruggen, who is busier than you would expect a goalkeeper to be when your team wins 5-1. The first thing he did, smashed it 70 yards upfield. Now, look, if we were to like conduct a seance right now and speak to Johan Cruyff and say, what do you think about that? None of the three of us would be talking for the next half hour, I don't think. So it's so unusual to see a Dutch side play like that. But on the other hand, on a practical level, it really worked.
That Brobby performance, I know what Master is saying, absolutely bang on. Like, maybe he's the man to start up front. What really caught my eye, and I talked about watching him for Sunderland this season, is that he's just a much more technical player than I think people realise. Like, on that opening goal, he's the one who picks the ball up, makes that first touch, makes that first pass. And so, like, I think I had it in my mind that he was this old-fashioned number 9, and just maybe I didn't watch him closely enough this year, because I watched him last night and thought, he's a bit of a do-it-all guy.
Well, you know what? He'll be glad to hear you say that if he's tuning in at breakfast, because Brian Brobby in his last season at Ajax got a lot of stick from TV pundits. And as we know, Dutch TV pundits can be pretty frank. If you've seen the clips online, they even switch into English to criticise Premier League players sometimes, in the case of Rafael van der Vaart. But there was a lot of discussion about, was he technically good enough to play for Ajax? Now, look, if we're talking about this current Ajax team, yeah, definitely. I think us three would get in it, to be perfectly honest, or at least on the bench. But look, I mean, I think it's been a bit of a vindication season. I agree with you for Brian Brobby, because he's shown how much more there is to him. He's added loads and loads to Sunderland and the Premier League, and you know, he's not just a wrestler. There's a lot more to him, and I think if you see his demeanour in the mix zone, there is a little bit of like short answers. I told you so. You know, come at me. And I quite like that. I quite like that, because he has put up with a lot of stick, and some of it has been really quite harsh and personal back in the Netherlands.
I love that too. I love that about the personality that he has, and a lot of different options that the Netherlands have. The other part too with them, as you mentioned, all the chances Sweden had there. It felt like the biggest question for Sweden had always been the Isak-Gyökeres partnership. And, I mean, they couldn't even get them the ball in the first quarter, if you want to describe it in that kind of way, up until the cooling break and the adjustments were made there. Do you walk away from this as a Sweden side, seeing their connection, seeing their ability to have some link-up play, creating chances? Are you a bit more optimistic that this is something maybe we haven't seen as often between these two?
Well, Graham Potter spoke about it in the pre-match press conference, Master, that I was at, and he just said it's a work in progress, and I think that's fair enough, really. What I always love about Potter is he is really realistic and balanced, and he said, look, the fact is we haven't had Alexander Isak for a lot of the season. You know, bear in mind he wasn't able to play in the playoffs as well. And I think the playoffs are really quite a good underlining of where Sweden are at exactly. They're a team with a lot of high quality talent, but a lot of gaps elsewhere on the pitch. And I think if you look at that bench, if you look at Lucas Bergvall, for example, who, you know, if we're looking 2 years down the line when they play at the Euros, presuming they qualify, I think there'll be a much better team there than they are now. Bergvall could be the captain of Tottenham by then. If we're being honest, if we're looking at the fact that he can develop and they're looking for leadership and all that sort of stuff. Kulusevski might be back, will hopefully be back. So I kind of think they weren't expecting, after such a poor qualifying campaign, to get here. And when we've seen Isak and Gyökeres, who haven't really played that much football together, work together, it's been in like League C of the Nations League. So I think when you have that little step up, and again, it's something that Potter pointed out before, he said, look, with the greatest of respect, this is a massive step up. Us playing Sweden this World Cup. They're here. They weren't necessarily expecting to be. They're in with Potter for the long term. Of course, they gave him a contract extension before this tournament even started. In fact, before the playoffs even started. You know, he made such a great initial impression. So this is something that they're going to have to work on, I think, to beat the very best teams, because there's signs that they can play really well together. You know, they're not just two such good players. They're two players who've worked out in in spells how to be complementary to each other. But it's going to take time. And the question is, who's the third part of it? Do you play Elanga, who was great when he came on? Do you play Benjamin Nugren, who was... He was really useful in the playoffs, and when they had that front three of Elanga, Nugren, and Gyökeres, that worked really well. But I've watched a lot of Celtic this past season. And Nugren is someone who hits the ball really cleanly. He steps up at big moments, but he does go missing for quite long periods in games, particularly when they're physical games, as it was yesterday.
I don't know how much, Andy, you got to catch of Côte d'Ivoire, Germany yesterday, but I know, obviously, as one of the hosts of Trans-Euro Express, you'll be very across the Yan Diomande situation. It feels like he's a player that we've heard mentioned a huge amount because of the transfer news, but what have you made of his performances so far? And Gary Neville spoke about it on the TV back here last night, of him against Joshua Kimmich as being like, he recognised it as when he was entering his 30s, late 30s, and going up against younger left wingers. He saw some of the pain in Joshua Kimmich's eyes of having to go up against a physical, more speedy player, because Gary Neville's like, yep, I remember that. That's when I knew it was time to retire.
Oh, it's the interesting thing, isn't it? Because, like, if he does turn up at Liverpool, he'll probably be playing on the right-hand side in the Mo Salah slot, with maybe Victor Munoz on the right-hand side, or maybe Kimmich's teammate Florian Wirtz, if he's not in the 10, on the left-hand side as well. So how it's going to shake out, I think, is really interesting. But again, I think if you remove the transfer speculation, it's kind of a free hit for Diomande as well. If we go back a year, he's coming off a season with Leganés, who were a relegated side in La Liga, who he started 6 games for. And so when Leipzig went and spent all that money for him, 20 million euros, you're thinking, okay, this is a bit of a gamble. I believed in his talent. I'd seen enough of him that I thought, yeah, this is something they can work on. And of course, Leipzig are excellent at developing and coaching young players. But if anyone said to you before last season that they're expecting him to play most of the games and get double figures in goals and assists, it would have to have been one of his family members, because it just wasn't expected at all. So the rate at which he's matured is unbelievable. Now, obviously, the conclusion to logically draw from that is a season more at Leipzig is going to do him the world of good. He's probably like one good performance away in the World Cup or one really good performance away, one keynote performance in the World Cup away from Liverpool or whoever else, PSG, just biting the bullet and go on then, let's have him now. And this is how modern football works. Like, Leipzig are in a really strong position because they don't need the money. They made loads of sales last summer, and they're in quite a strong position to bargain. But what I really like about him is he's able to, even if the rest of the world is talking about all that, he doesn't really seem to be thinking about that. He seems to be really enjoying his football as if none of this was actually happening, which is brilliant.
Lovely to see.
Yeah.
I want to flip sides real quick, and I want to ask a question about England, because the fitness issues, particularly with some of these Arsenal players, it seems like it's bubbling up in the news, whether it is Declan Rice and of course Bukayo Saka. What do you make of they had long seasons, obviously, domestically and coming in and dealing with these fitness issues. How much will that impact England in a longer tournament, in the heat now, and not being in a controlled environment like they were in Dallas? Is this a problem, you think, moving forward?
Well, you know what, Master? We're going to find out whether Thomas Tuchel picked the right squad, really, because there was a lot of criticism for some of his picks. I thought they were all pretty logical on the whole. I didn't think it was that contestable, personally. And I think Tuchel took a leaf out of the Didier Deschamps book in not picking the best 26 players, but picking the players that he thought would fit together, socially as much as anything else, but also bearing in mind where they were physically. So, look, Madueke coming is really important. He's sort of taken a bit of the physical pressure off Saka this season, and that's worked well. I feel in central midfield, England are pretty well stocked. Obviously, losing Declan Rice would be a bit of a choker, but I think you look at where England are, I think they'll be in the position to rest him in Game 3. And I think they will look at resting a few players in game 3, and that they really need to, not just to deal with the conditions, but to sort of look at it from a Greg Popovich game management sort of perspective. I think that's really, really important. And I think that Tuchel has really picked the squad with that in mind. Now, look, Reece James obviously gave a complete player's perspective in going, oh, boring, when people are talking about fitness. But, I can understand why people are anxious about it. But I think as well, the performance against Croatia really encouraged me, not just in terms of the performance, but in terms of the fact that there seems to be an understanding that rather than dominate for the whole game, that there has to be like changing the pace and just riding spells of momentum. Now, that is something that Tuchel has done very well throughout his coaching career. If you go back to when he was at Mainz and Dortmund, and if you'd have asked after his first season at Dortmund, what sort of football does Thomas Tuchel play? I reckon you could have asked 20 different Dortmund fans and they'd have given you at least 18 different answers, because there are moments when they press. There are moments when they sit off and recuperate physically during the game. And I think to have like different game states and different approaches for different game states is super important at a tournament, and that was what has always recommended Tuchel to me, because it's what England, going back, not just to people talked about game management under Southgate, but I think you can go back to Hodgson, various previous coaches, and I tend to think that England have been a bit bull in a china shop in previous tournaments. Go in, impose the Premier League-ness on everyone. But what that means is after 60, 65 minutes, if it's not happened against the team, you kind of hit a bit of a physical wall and you've maybe run out of ideas. I think that's far less likely under Tuchel. And I think the fitness issue is maybe a bit of a reminder to the players to approach the game in that sort of multifaceted way.
Andy, as always, so generous with your time. Just one quick one from me. For people who don't know Andy, other than being the host of the Great Trans Euro Express and everything else, you have been very close to this Portugal team over the years and have some relationships there, etc. Just, I've not heard your thoughts on the Cristiano Ronaldo situation, and I'd love to know where you are a couple of days out from them going back out there. I know you were at the DR Congo game, so where are you feeling about this Portugal side right now?
Well, they're not going to drop him, if that's your question. I think we can all agree on that, right? Honestly, it's a really tricky one, because at this point, you kind of do have to divorce yourself from the history. But I think there are a couple of sides to it. Firstly, look, it wasn't just that he didn't score in that first game. Ronaldo was very poor in that first game. And I think you look at the other side of it, Cedric Bakambu, who's no spring chicken himself, he's 35. He got himself in the spots to score goals, didn't take the chances, but he made himself useful in the moments where he wasn't involved. He held the ball up very well, he occupied the defenders and did those sort of centre-forward basics, really. So that's a bit of an issue for them. I think the fact that Gonçalo Ramos hasn't really come on in the last couple of years because he's been riding the PSG bench has been a problem. But look, sometimes I think we look at this just like football fans, and we think, and that's fair enough. We all got into this business for a certain reason. But the fact is, if you think Ronaldo being in the team is all just about football, I don't really know. You can't be coming from that direction. I think we can think that it's all just about the football. Whereas the reality is, over the last 20 years, Ronaldo has been such a standard bearer in terms of image. And people will say, well, that doesn't matter on the pitch. It does matter. It really does matter, because I went to, as you say, I went to that game in Houston between Portugal and DR Congo. And I can't remember the last time I went to a game where so many people in the crowd were wearing the same shirt of one certain player, and what he represents for them commercially, in terms of profile, all those sort of things, is absolutely massive. They don't want to draw a line under the Cristiano Ronaldo moment. It brings so much money into the FA, and I think sometimes we think it's all just about what happens on the pitch. It's not. It's really not. The fact is, the day that they have to move on from Cristiano Ronaldo, Portugal, and just be a really good football team, okay, it might help them in terms of actually winning stuff, but I think it presents some issues for the FA, put it that way.
Andy, brilliant stuff as always from you. Thank you so much for joining us on the S Word. Wonderful stuff from Houston. The brilliant Andy Brassell, Will Gavin, Master Sfatsy, and the S Word sponsored by Calci. Ben Jacobs joins us next.
The S Word with Will Gavin and Master Tesfacion
from talkSPORT.
talkSPORT presents
The S Word.
Get your full-on football fix from across the football galaxy.
The S Word
from talkSPORT.
You're back with the S Word on talkSPORT. Will Gavin here in London. Master Tesfazian out on the West Coast doing the early shift before he heads off to Guadalajara, Mexico. What a week you are having. What 2 weeks you are having, Master Tesfazian. Sensational stuff.
I'm feeling it, though. Will, this is the dog days of the World Cup. And I think I went a little too hard after that USA-Australia match, and my body's still feeling it.
Buddy, there's still a month to go. There's still a full month to go.
They told me it was a marathon, but I am sprinting. I am sprinting right now. This will be my fourth match. I'm going to Guadalajara for Colombia, DR Congo on Tuesday.
Great.
This will be my fourth match so far through match day 2. And what a blessing. What an honor. Hopefully many more to come. But if not, what a journey it's already been.
Sensational. Look, we're going to look forward to today's games. Just a quick one, though, on... we were hearing from Andy there. We thought we were going to have another guest here, so we could have just done with Andy for another 10 minutes or so, to be honest. But just your thoughts on hearing someone, and Andy really, when I say he's inside the Portugal camp, I mean he has been at other tournaments with them basically as a translator, as a media person, as like he knows these players, he knows this FA incredibly well. Hearing his thoughts on Cristiano Ronaldo, that essentially... They understand him more as a commercial prospect than they care about it as a footballing prospect.
I mean, I can understand that sentiment. I also think with guys like him, guys like Messi, guys like Neymar, they also instill a level of belief and hope, whether it is delusional or not. The idea that when you look at that lineup and you see the starting 11 and you see Cristiano Ronaldo up top, I would imagine as a Portuguese person or as a fan of Portugal, that is the first place you go to. That is the place in which you have constantly found your confidence in and your belief in that Portugal will do its best, will do its all, as long as number 7 is playing in the starting 11. And it'll be interesting to see what changes they make in match day 2, because the wingers and other issues that happened with Cape Verde obviously DR Congo played a great performance, but there's still more to be done from their attackers, more chance to be created. I mean, I don't know if you saw, Will, there was a lot of fans who were going crazy at the fact that Cristiano Ronaldo was just not getting service and was not getting the ball. And that became a huge talking point after the match and was drawing, 20,000 comments, and everyone was going insane. And that's the belief, again, that, if Cristiano Ronaldo's not touching the ball, there's an assumption being made that you're not providing the best chance for Portugal to win, whether you believe that or not.
There is this... We sometimes joke about delusion of fan bases, etc. on this show, but there is something about Cristiano Ronaldo fans, and Messi fans can be just as myopic, it has to be said. But the way that they watch that team play football, and when Thierry Henry, one of the greatest footballers of his generation, certainly of my lifetime, sits there on the Fox coverage and says, watch this chance. When Cristiano Ronaldo should drop off to the back post to pull that space and open up the space for Bruno Fernandes to score a goal and win this game of football. Instead, he goes to the ball because it's about him scoring, not the team scoring. And you look at the comments below it saying, who is Thierry Henry to tell Cristiano Ronaldo how to play football? And you're just like, there is no sense of understanding that this, like, you can argue Messi versus Ronaldo on their on-field merits. You can argue that Lionel Messi is a better PR agent and better at making himself seem like a good guy in the media and everything. But what you can't argue is when you watch his performance in the opening game, and he was pulling the strings and creating spaces and creating chances for other people, that he was playing his role within the team. Cristiano Ronaldo was not playing a role within a team. He was playing a Cristiano Ronaldo role, and the rest of the team had to do it for him. And I just can't.
Well, what is his role in the team? I mean, his role has always been being a prolific goal scorer, and if he's not touching the ball, like it's what exactly is his role at that point? And I think that's the biggest question Portugal. It's one of the questions Portugal needs to answer in their next match. But you looked at it in terms of his performance, and you expect more from him. You expect more from Portugal, especially when they had the lead in the first 6 minutes. Mm-hmm. Like you expected that Portugal would be able to handle business. And again, credit to DR Congo, it's a good side as well. But I'm very curious to see what Portugal does against Uzbekistan. Because look, you can think what you want to about Uzbekistan. They are also a very, very difficult side to break down. They keep their shape. This one will not be easy for Portugal, and it's going to be another good test for them to see how they can find different solutions to teams that are very formidable and tough to break down.
Let's take a quick look forward to today's games. Group G and Group H get match day 2 underway. We kick things off in just a couple of short hours' time. Early kickoff today, one of the earliest in the World Cup window. Spain against Saudi Arabia. And the question marks around DLF's side, it's fair to say, like, if any team needs to show up and show out on match day 2, it's this Spanish team.
Yeah, speaking of which, in terms of disappointing performances to start off with, I'm very curious, though, in terms of these noon kickoffs, these noon Eastern time kickoffs. That's what Spain had to deal with in the first match, and they're dealing with that again here. I don't know if that makes much of a difference in terms of the early kickoff times, how the different teams are responding towards those different kickoff times. But regardless of whatever the case is, Spain needs a big response today. And I would expect us to see that big response and for them to win big today. I really do.
They kind of have to. And this is a Saudi Arabian team who shouldn't be disrespected on any front for people who are going out and going, oh, this is a real opportunity. Good draw with Uruguay to start the tournament. Obviously, made a huge name for themselves on the global scale with that performance against Argentina to kickstart the last World Cup. And so they're not going to make this easy for Spain by any stretch of the imagination. The big question mark is, are your wingers fit? And can you do it if they're not? Because what I saw in that first Spain game was without those two players, and don't get me wrong, take the best 2 players out of any team in the world and they are a worse football team, obviously. But Spain don't seem to have another answer when those 2 aren't there.
They were too patient. And when Lamine Yamal came in the short amount of time he did play, you could see his ability to take on one-on-one defenders along the wings made a huge difference. So I wouldn't want to rush him back, though. That's always been the big question, and that was something I continued to harping on at the start of this tournament. Everyone said, "Oh, you don't need to rush him back. Just play him in the third match." But is there enough from the Spain side to create chances without Lamine Yamal, without Nico Williams? And if you do rush him back and you do feel pressed to play him, is this only going to make the injury worse? It's a very tricky balance for Luis de la Fuente.
And equally, if you don't rush him back and you don't get him back into this side and you drop points again today, you go into that game with Uruguay knowing that anything but a win, and you're going to go out in the group stages. And let's be honest, it's not just anything but a win. It's the fact that you're no longer topping the group. You're giving yourself a much more difficult run to the quarters, semis, finals, etc. When you are
there, he is.
Well,
there he is.
Right? Yeah. Did I go?
There he is. Now you're buying.
Where's the button?
You're buying in now. You're buying in now.
Like, just I just.
Do you think they win though?
I think they win. I do think they win tonight. I think the pressure is way too high for them to not potentially. But if they don't, boy oh boy, get the Spanish guests lined up for tomorrow. It's going to be it is going to be just a complete and utter autopsy of this Spanish side. We are actually pretty much out of time on the show. Just of the other three games tonight, anything that catches the eye?
They're all very interesting. Uruguay, Cape Verde. I'm curious to see how Cape Verde responds after that performance against Spain. Belgium, Iran, I think will be really fun. I liked what I saw from Iran against New Zealand. That was a really, really fun match, one of the best matches in the group stage. And in New Zealand, Egypt. New Zealand having a very impressive performance as well in that 2-2 draw with Iran. I think these are all fairly even matchups that we'll learn a lot from these two different groups in Group H and Group G coming out of this.
Master, brilliant as always from you. Safe travels to Guadalajara. We look forward to seeing you Mas Fiesta tomorrow, baby. Maybe for your travel day, just less fiesta, and then after tomorrow's show, Mas Fiesta. Just, I'm just saying. You said the dog days are here.
I'm sprinting. Every day is Saturday. Every day is Saturday.
It's Lamine Yamal. We need to rest you. Brilliant stuff from Master Sebastian. Thank you so much.
Happy Father's Day too, Will. Happy Father's Day to everybody else listening as well.
Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Tubi, Fox Soccer, all over our socials. Like, subscribe, do all that good stuff. Thank you so much. This has been the S Word.
Bringing all the biggest football debates.
Stateside.
The S Word.
From talkSPORT.